My case arose in 1996, a member of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, acts of violence and in that life, this enemies perceived, imagined, real. The type of guy that I was, I was hunting for people that were my perceived enemies. I pled out to a 35-year sentence. In Leavenworth, there was a million around. Everybody had contraband. The first thing everybody said to you was, yo, I got one of those things. I got you. Your homeboys were like, the thing's over there. If you need it, I'm going to show you. We're going to walk by it. The craziest thing that we had for weapons in Leavenworth were towel racks, right? That were dummy pushed into the wall, you know what I'm saying? Like bolted into the wall. They were steel.
Wow.
And if you just hit them hard enough, they come off the wall. And they were like weapons, all points on them. I was like, what the? You know what I mean?
Hey everybody, welcome to the Bounce Back Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Lukas. I got a special guest with me today. So why don't you tell the people your name, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself?
My name is John Bartolomeo. Everybody calls me Johnny Bot. And I'm from East Boston. And basically, I just got out of prison after 27 years in federal prison. I've been out for about 18 months. My case arose in 1996, a member of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, acts of violence and drugs. I pled out to a 35-year sentence with an upward departure for violence. It wasn't a beyond the reasonable doubt standard for the violence. I actually pled out. So just to, not get anybody else in trouble. So we kind of axed the whole case at that point when nobody else got in trouble, nobody got indicted, nobody had to come back for grand juries. The reason why that I came here, of course, is that me, you, and of course Mike have a great rapport, you know what I'm saying? And, you've been a great guy. I've been seeing your stuff the whole time, and I was like, I don't know, should I go on this? Should I do it? You know what I'm saying? But, you're a Boston guy through and through. I just think that it's important for all of us as Boston guys. Mike and Jake Scally did a little thing, and I said, Boston's new Instagram mob, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, for real, it's just a catchy name, right? But I just think that, everybody from Boston should, especially, and not even in this genre, right? I'm saying just people from Boston in general. I think we have, a very powerful base of people, and a lot of people that, are really unselfish, and Jake Scally's another guy that that I think of all the time. There's just just like you, when it's like my thing was trying to get to 10 grand, you know what I'm saying, and you were putting things out on page. Mike put something on his page like, let's get, so I just think that unselfishness, you know what I'm saying, especially in the age where people are very selfish in this day and age. I just think it rings true, and I think you always get more doing for others than you do by just trying to be selfish, you know what I'm saying, and trying to be self-centered. So I know kind of off track about the whole thing about my whole story is being in prison, and this is your forum to bounce back, and I love it because if anybody bounced back as soon as they get out, I was fortunate enough to, I'm just blessed beyond belief.
So talk a little bit about what it was like growing up in East Boston for you. What's the neighborhood like? What was the family situation and all of that?
Yeah, so all my friends, especially, like my friend Nick that owns Strega, Nick Verano, he always says, nobody can understand like how you got caught up into this life. You had like the best parents, two bit older brothers, you know what I'm saying, that were always, micromanaging you, making sure you were all right. They were going out and try to slay monsters that looked at you, you know what I mean? So everybody tries to figure out, how I kind of got into that life, right? Of, just crime, of just, just being a wild kid. I was with an organization and stuff, but way before that, you know what I'm saying? I just was always a wild kid, and I always just talk about when I became conscious of who I was in my neighborhood. I make the mistake like everybody else, I believe, that I look back and said like, hey, this is my neighborhood. It's the way it's always going to be. It's the this is the way it always was, and this is it's a predominantly Italian neighborhood. We had other nationalities, of course, other races, of course, you know what I'm saying, but predominantly it was Italian at that time, But I believe that now I know, of course, a universal truism is that the only thing constant is change, right?
That's
so, and I was so caught up in, the the frenzy of wanting people to think that I was a tough guy. I really think that, and then when people started to believe it, I started to perpetuate what, what they believed, you know what I'm saying? So I think growing up in my neighborhood, it was, I don't know, I believe everybody's neighborhood, you never want to be taken as like a weak guy. You always wanted to be known as like a tough guy, right? So I think that kind of had the underpinnings for me to become who I was. But I always I was afraid to learn. I didn't want to learn, didn't think I could do it. So I wanted to make money, the fastest way I could, make the most amount of money. And if it was, with brute force behind it, then that's what I was going to do. Yeah. And I just thought it was a no-brainer, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can make all this money by just being a tough guy. I'm saying that, just have your reputation behind something. It was easy. So, I grew up one street down from East Boston High School. Great family, played hockey my whole life. But as I became an adolescent, I started to sell dime bags, got into, selling Valium. That's my whole childhood. I sold Valiums. I made a ton of money. Once I, put a patch on my back, that was a bullseye. That was the end of the drug trade for me. But I could have kept, selling drugs probably for a long time, But, when I did go to prison, that's the first thing I said to myself was, how did I think this was going to end? Did I think I could just do this forever?
Yeah, it's a one-way road to a tough life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, to ruin, for sure.
So how were you as a student? Did you get into a lot of trouble in school growing up?
The funniest thing is I read my first complete book when I was in prison. So it just gives you an idea. So, I just kind of faked it. I got through high school, but it was really just something that I went through the motions, did the bare minimum, and I accomplished my goal. I went to East Boston High School. My mother and father told me, listen, kid, there's no way around this. Yeah. All you can do is go through it. That's it. It's the only way. If you're going to live in this house, you got to go through school. So there's no bargaining, no nothing. Get through high school. Yep. So, I did that,
Okay. What was next? What was your plan after high school?
So, probably like every kid in the whole world, right? Take a year off and go to college, right? But certainly didn't pan out that way. As I kind of cemented my reputation. I took a pinch early on in life. I was selling pot for somebody, and they came down and bailed me out. And obviously, I didn't tell on nobody. And they were like, I thought that was a badge of honor.
Right, the old Goodfellas. You broke your,
you broke your cherry, kid. So and then I always say, like, I got into a couple fights in my neighborhood, and I always say, like, hey, people probably drove by right at the perfect time when I was winning hands down, and they didn't see, the 4 punches that I almost got knocked out with, right? You know what I'm saying? So just good timing, and they thought I was a tough guy. You know what I'm saying? I just kind of, I ran with that. You know what I'm saying? I ran with that. I started to really progress. I started to, I did drugs as a kid, you know what I'm saying? I'm clean now, but when I was doing drugs as a kid, I even got clean before I even got in the club, but I just worked on, becoming an arch criminal. That was my thing. After, I didn't want to be a drug addict no more. I just worked on, I got out of kind of that life, but I wanted everybody to know who I was, and that was the bad thing about it. You know what I'm saying? I would just do things in the middle of the street, like, and I thought, like, I don't know if I thought I was going to be invisible doing it. I did it for the attention, to just kind of cement kind of my reputation,
So when did you start to, I guess, be interested in even like motorcycles?
So I was always the kid that was running around his house going, you know what I'm saying? So I remember the first thing my aunt made me when she went to a ceramics class is a guy on a motorcycle, so I think the writing was on the wall there, you know what I'm saying? And my father, the first bike he bought me had actual front and back shocks. So I just think that was just a natural progression. But how I really got into the club was, I always talk about the Palace nightclub complex. It was a huge nightclub complex in the North Shore that had like about 20 nightclubs in it. And you're shaking your head like you might know what that is. But I don't know. You're not. Anybody that says they know what it was is showing their age. Maybe this.
Well, I remember they had an under 18 thing going on back in the day when I was at the Bahama Beach Club or something.
Bahama Beach Club,
that's why.
So my Uncle Bobby, he was the head of security there. He's my father's brother. So what happened was I would be up there every weekend. I would just pull up, walk in, avoid the line, just walk in. Everybody knew me. I'm saying, my Uncle Bobby ran the whole head of security. I knew everybody. I was, it was like Goodfellas in there. You know what I'm saying? Go in one door, come out the kitchen, come up another door in a club. They're like, oh, how'd you get here? But I just knew the whole lay of the place. And why I'm telling you this is because what happens is guys in Salem started having their functions there. And that's kind of how I got to know guys in the club and eventually became, a member of the club,
So I guess walk me through the events that lead up to you catching this case where you got to take a 35-year sentence.
Yeah. Obviously, in that life, this enemies perceived, imagined, real. The type of guy that I was, I was hunting for people that were my perceived enemies. And I ended up finding a couple, and one of them, I assaulted, I put a hammer in his head. Another guy ran over and killed with a car, and that's the short of it. And there's a lot of things that will say my prior life, right? So there's things that I really won't talk about with that, you know what I'm saying? Because there's an organization that's a greater entity than me. I'm just was a member of it, my story is larger than that entity, and somebody else can speak for that, but I don't speak for that. I speak for myself.
Absolutely. So how does it work with the federal case? Where do they hold you at? And like, how long does it take to take your time? Did you get a bail? No bail in the feds, right?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for bail actually. So I think it got denied anyway. So, but my friend always says that my co-defendant Gio, he's classiest kid in the whole world, best kid you'll ever meet, one best friend in the world, one of the best guys. But I got to a camp after 21 years, and he was like, I'm still waiting for them to send me to a camp. Like, I didn't even do anything. They didn't send me to a camp. I didn't even get bail. Yeah. So he's always, busting my chops about that. I said, well, I had to wait 21 years. You want to come back and wait 21 years? I'm sure I could get you a camp too, So.
Well, how does it go? Do they got you in Plymouth?
So I was
Wyatt?
I was in Plymouth, but so we were in Wyatt, and the funny thing is, right? So September 5th, 1996, we get arrested. I'm in the back seat of the state police car, motherfucking the cops saying, I'll be out by lunch. I don't even... 27 years later, I got out. But I wasn't out by lunch. So I ended up, we ended up going to the federal building, and I knew there was something serious about it when there was the SWAT team members were standing in the lockers with the automatic weapons. Yeah. There was, helicopters. I was like, wow, this might be a little bigger than a bail at lunch here. You know what I'm saying? So we were in the Moakley building, not the new courthouse on one courthouse way. We were in the Joseph Moakley, I believe it is, building, and that's where we got arraigned. So we got arraigned, we went to Wyatt. So there was 17 of us, 16, 17 of us. So half of us went to Wyatt, half of us went to Plymouth. So when I first get to Wyatt, I went to Wyatt. It was a private run facility. It was a pretrial detention facility that was privately run. Boy, I ran amok there. I did everything but take hostages there. It was nuts, started group demonstrations, flooded out the whole unit. We assaults. I ended up getting transferred from there, and I went to Plymouth. But the funniest thing about this is that I was writing a book before I was leaving Lewisburg in the drug program. That's where I wrapped up from. And I was saying to myself that in my sick mind back then, right, I filed a lawsuit for retaliatory transfer, saying that they retaliated against me for transferring me. When I got the discovery for this case, it's great because I was writing the book and I was like, oh, you know what? There's a case that supports what I'm writing right now. So what they said was they detailed about 23 disciplinary reports that I got saying, he flooded out a whole unit. He masterminded this thing. He was the lead of group demonstration. This had 3 assault here. And it was for these reasons, it's not a retaliatory transfer. And I was like, wow, I think they got a good point there. You know what I'm saying? So Wyatt was kind of short-lived. I think I stayed in Wyatt for probably about 6 months. It was a long, process because my co-defendants, were kind of in the process of pleading out. And the government had given my lawyer a memorandum saying that, they offered me a 35-year sentence, that if I took the sentence, it would be beneficial to all my friends, the exact wording. And it named everybody that, wouldn't get indicted, right, if I took the 35-year deal. And it also named people that, these people are already sentenced in your case. And if you want us to, get a grand jury together, we're going to get a grand jury, and we're going to bring all your friends back that got sentenced already. And if they don't want to testify, we're just going to hold them for the life of the grand jury. In other words, if it's 9 months, your time stops. Right. It's like them adding another 9 months to a year on. So I have people come up, all of my friends, people from the club, and say, hey, listen, if you want a lawyer, we'll get you a lawyer. You know, we'll have everybody donate money, whatever. But I was like, you know what? It's just, we're just going to end this whole thing. Let's just end it. I'm going to take it. One person, bang it out. I didn't know what I was doing at the time.
Right,
I mean,
right,
thinking, yeah, whatever. I'll just take it. 9 months in jail. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you got to go do the 35, it's a whole different story. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That's me saying that in hindsight,
Yeah,
in retrospect,
looking back,
right?
yeah.
I never complained a day about doing it. I just did it. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, subjectively, I thought to myself, like, it's a long time to do in prison.
At any point, did you feel like you might have maybe let down some of your loved ones, your mom or something like that, your parents? Like, what are those conversations like when it's like 30, 35 years, you know what I mean?
So great question. And, you know, a lot of my philosophy today comes from that method of thinking, the way that I think now, you know. The craziest thing is, you know, my mother's a very religious person. My father's had a very strong work ethic. And my mother was in the front row when I was getting sentenced, holding the St. Jude statue. Yeah. She was there, you know, every day. She had bailed me out a few times. My family had bailed me out from other assaults and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, Ma, you know, John, listen, she said, I would sell this house and everything in it so you could get out for one day. Yeah. So don't ever worry about that. Like, you know, just that unconditional love, you know what I'm saying? I'd buy cans of cat food for 85 cents for my cats, and I'm like, these motherfuckers, you know what I mean? So I don't know if I could ever, you know, I mean, that's a whole nother level of unconditional love, right?
Yeah. A mother's love is something else, I tell you, you know?
No, there's nothing like it. And, you know, my mother, of course, we all hold our mothers in high esteem. Each of us that have a mother that, you know, has done this same type of stuff for us. So there were things that transpired in my life. When my brother Ronnie passed away, there were certain things that happened. And you say, like, so I always have the belief now that, you know, I gave my loyalty, right, to people that I didn't know. I took it from my family and gave it to them. You know what I mean? I'm a guy that stands on what I did too. You know what I'm saying? So I don't work on hypotheticals. Yeah. I don't believe in, you know, what if, you know, if I didn't go to prison, maybe I'd be 300 pounds, have a wife that hated me, have 3 kids that told me to go F myself, and you know, who knows? So
you could have got hit by a car crossing the street if you didn't go to prison and die. You know, you never know.
You never do know. So I don't work on hypotheticals, but what I can tell you is this: that of course, that, you know, my new philosophy going forward, and, you know, people have heard this all the time, is, you know, and I use the hashtag a lot. I got it on some of the clothes that I sell, is making my mom proud, right?
Yeah,
so
I love that.
My mother's dead, but I try to do a thing once a day, something once a day that will make my mother proud from heaven, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way that I pay tribute to her, because God knows I put her through hell when I was a kid, you know? But in another quote that I often use too as well is that, you know, we can only live life moving forward and only understand it in reverse. Yeah. And in reverse is how I kind of put what you had just said into play for myself as I live my life. So, you know, I killed a guy, I, you know, put a hammer through another guy's head, like stuff that this case is about. But when my brother Ronnie died while I was in prison, really traumatic time for me, but I had to come to grips with the feelings that I used something as a badge of honor my whole, you know, my whole life, that, you know, when I perpetrated acts of violence on people, that was a badge of honor for me, right? I'm saying that was in our neighborhood, like, oh, that's, you know, he's crazy, you know. Yeah. So, but when my brother died, I had to think about, like, hey, you know, the guy that I killed was somebody else's brother. Right. And I seen my mother going through a really difficult time, and I said, you know, I wonder how his mother felt. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I had to come to grips with those feelings, right? And I did what I did, right? You know, I signed a plea agreement to do 35 years for the things that I did, right? Would I ever want to do those things moving forward to anybody? No, I just want to have a good life. I just want to live my life. And, you know, I just practice conflict avoidance. I don't want to ever get into a problem with anybody, and I hope I never do, right? But what's in the past is in the past. You know, I did what I did, you know, so. Well, and so, I eat it.
Condolences, sorry about your brother, but just for, like, I guess, reference, like, how old were you when your brother passed away, and, like, how old were you when you took that plea and went to the feds?
So I was 26 years old, about to turn 27 when I took the plea, and that was in 1997, I believe. I took the plea, and my brother died 6 years later.
You get sentenced. What's the first stop? How does that go? You go, like, classification?
Yep. I got sentenced to 420 months. I thought the judge changed his mind until I did the monthly calculation. I said, that's still 35 years, all right. So the first place I went to, because in my speech to the court, I told the judge that, shame on him for sitting behind an American flag or in front of an American flag and telling people to cooperate against other people. You know what I mean? I told him, I used the correlation that if you and I were in a foxhole, Your Honor, and the enemy was all around us, we'd die with the America's secrets or we'd get out of there alone. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of always held in high esteem that, listen, if you do something, take responsibility. You can't take the blame off yourself and put it on somebody else, So what he had said after that was that I've done nothing but sully the names of the people that serve the nation, and I'm sending you to maximum security for the length of your confinement, which is 35 years. So he tried to sentence me to maximum security, and the first place that I went to was Leavenworth.
Can they do that? Okay.
I'll definitely, they can't.
Okay.
Because now that's a classification thing. So Warden Booker, when I finally did get to Leavenworth, sent Judge Young a letter saying, we take all court recommendations very seriously, but we have a classification system and we can't keep Mr. Bartolomeo in maximum security forever unless the conditions warrant it, and his conditions don't.
Okay, so that you went to USP Leavenworth?
Yep, Leavenworth, Kansas.
Okay, Kansas. So how does that work? You get there, how do you know where to sit, like at a table or something like that? You got, care package from people coming in? How does it work?
The first day I walked in, I went straight to the segregation. You don't go to the line. At Leavenworth Penitentiary at that time, everybody has to personally see the captain of the institution. It's something called the captain's review in the feds. And people that have been in the feds will know exactly what that is. So I remember being in a holding cage with my hands. So I went to the SHU, went to the cell. Next morning, they cuffed us up, brought us to a holding tank. I remember being cuffed up for like about, I don't know, it felt like 6 days.
Damn.
But I remember being cuffed up for a long time with my hands behind my back. I remember my arms completely numb.
Wow.
And I'm not saying nothing. Me and another kid that was my bunkie, he didn't say nothing, so I didn't say anything, you know what I mean? So, but the thing is, I'm thinking to myself, wow, we're in prison. We can't go nowhere. They still use cuffs.
Yeah.
That was my first time seeing that they use cuffs in jail still, You know, the craziest thing is I waited for the captain. The first thing he asked me was, can you go on the line? So everybody asked me, what's the line mean? That's general population. In the feds, we called it the line, go on the line. So he said, are you all right to go on the line? And I'm like, absolutely, I have no problems. He goes, you ever cooperate in a federal investigation? Obviously, they have my file. They know that I didn't, and I'm like, never. And he goes, you ain't fair for your life anywhere here? I'm like, no, not at all. He goes, you know where you're at, right? He goes, people get hey, this. So he read me like the whole riot act, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, boss, listen, I'm ready to go. I'm good, He goes, all right, you're good to go, you know what I'm saying? So you went back to the SHU and then you went back on the line. So as soon as I got on the line, my case was pretty big at the time that it happened. So there was like a little few articles in the USA Today actually about it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
News, yeah.
Because what happened is this guy, Phil Marlowe, who was the head agent on my case, got invited to the White House for dinner that year in the DEA. Wow. You know what I'm saying? So hey, listen, I made a guy's career. What can I say? And I ain't mad at him. You know what I mean? So it was a pretty big case. So people knew who I was. That especially guys from our area, from Charlestown, South Boston. There was a bunch of guys there. Yeah, it was right off the rip, you know what I'm saying? Hey, guys knew, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And one of my homeboys took me aside, Wariak from Charlestown, and he was like, Johnny, listen, go to the counselor's office, write a cop-out, give him the cop-out, which is a request form. Cop-out, we called them cop-outs in the feds. Give him a request form, get your PSI. That's your pre-sentence report. This way here, you have it all the time. You know what I'm saying? So I did that, and I got to that mail call that night. But an interesting caveat now is that you can't even possess that paperwork anymore because there's so many informants in these institutions, and they just found out it was much easier. Hey, you know what? You can't see anybody's paperwork. Yeah. And if you ask guys for paperwork, you're going to get in trouble for doing it, Yeah. So that's kind of how the prison system has went. I'm talking about 25 years ago, you know what I'm saying? A long time ago.
So why don't you break that down for someone who may be not familiar with like jail or prison with the whole paperwork thing?
Yeah, it's interesting too because, and I have a YouTube channel and I've been breaking stuff down, to rudimentary level because when guys like us talk, we're like, yeah, this guy, he was a skinner, this guy. So we use all this terminology that only we know about, right? And people that are interested in, this type of content really want to know exactly what that is. So your paperwork it could be anything. Your paperwork just So if you're going through customs, right, your paperwork is what? Your paperwork is your passport.
Right.
It's, whatever that you have that you're declaring, right? So paperwork is exactly that. So in prison, your paperwork is your passport. And your paperwork is, it's a list of your prior crimes, a list of the crime that you've been indicted for, the reason why you're in prison, and the sentencing transcripts that tells exactly, what led a judge to a conclusion that you should get whatever time you did. Like, and what we'll say in those transcripts is, because of your cooperation, we're giving you a shorter sentence, so when you can just read it, you know what I mean? So, of course, your paperwork is like, hey, I used to call my paperwork was like pornography for a prisoner. Yeah. It read so great, and just the things that I said to the judge, that if I had a chance to go back and take them back, I probably would have, because I probably would have got playing on a appeal that I had. Yeah. But just because of all the stuff that I said in court, it was...
So what happens if someone makes it through and they got bad paperwork? What are like some of the repercussions that happen in there?
So especially in Leavenworth, right? Like I remember guys from, Boston all the time ran a tight car, but guys from New York would tell their guys like, hey, listen, you know what? And there was no excuse. You could go to your counselor, right? And get it. I'm getting my paperwork, they're sending it in. All right, well, listen, you got a week to get it. Mm-hmm. And then, you would see down a little crevice of a hallway one day during chow, dude's getting beat up down there, because he didn't have his paperwork. Didn't even have it.
Wow.
Now, I mean, I don't know, I don't know what that looks like or feels like, because I've never had that, so, but I've seen people get wrecked over paperwork. But people do make it through the cracks, right? Yeah. Because we do have people that, you find out, I remember I found out, I don't know, I think 6 months later, 8 months later after I got to a joint, my friend gave me paperwork on this kid that didn't testify in a trial with guys that I know in Washington, but that he had gave some information to authorities on guys that were associated with us. So, he slipped through the cracks, and then I had to kind of handle that afterwards.
So when you get to Leavenworth, the level of violence, was that something at that point you're already desensitized to? Is that something, just living a violent life and coming up that way, or was it a whole different level when you get there that even you were shocked?
That's a amazing question, right? Great question. Because we're used to violence where we're from, right? Mm-hmm. And it almost seems like, whatever, this is old hat for me, you know what I'm saying? But it's not, right? Because basically, I always tell people this: picture going to the police station and then getting into a fight. Yeah. Would you ever go to the police station and get into a fight? Never in your whole life, right? Never. Mm-hmm. But that's basically what prison is. You live in the police station, right? And whenever there's violence, you're perpetrating acts of violence in the police station. So it definitely is more pronounced in prison, because it's so close up, and nobody has a gun, nobody has a car, you ain't driving by. Everything is very, very intimate, and you're living with these people. It's being in a small apartment complex where everybody lives every single day, and then seeing hey, what's up, Billy? How you doing? Hey, Bob, what's up? And then seeing Bob get butchered. Wow, what did Bob do? You know what I'm saying? So it definitely has, there's definitely a different twist to it. It definitely is more pronounced. I remember, the first time I seen a couple of, Hispanic gangs get into it, and they really got into it. This was probably the most vicious, incident of violence I had ever seen in prison so far. I had seen, vicious fistfights in pre-trial. They were some of the best fistfights I ever seen in my whole life in Plymouth. Yeah. Well, unbelievable. They were the best fistfights I ever seen in my life, and I was like, wow, I better work on my fight game here, boy. I'll tell you that. These guys are a million miles an hour. Yeah. But, in Leavenworth, there was a million knives around. Everybody had contraband. The first thing everybody said to you was, I got one of those things. I got you. Your homeboys were like, the thing's over there. If you need it, I'm going to show you. We're going to walk by it. All you got to do is do this, and this to get it out. We had the craziest thing that we had for weapons in Leavenworth were towel racks, right? That were dummy pushed into the wall, you know what I'm saying? Bolted into the wall, and they were They were steel.
Wow.
And if you just hit them hard enough, they come off the wall. And they were like murder weapons, all points on them. I was like, what the? You know what I mean? And we had some of the best knives in the whole world. But when you seen one of these knives, they were like the rustiest things in the whole world. Because what happens is there's long pipes for the toilets. We used to floss them and put them into the water. So they would automatically just be rusty. And you this, all you do is get like a paperback book, tear off about 10, 15, 20 pages of it, and then get it wet, and it would never move, you know what I mean? So, and, I seen some vicious acts of violence that, impacted me, you know what I'm saying? And they, the magnitude of them, even when you juxtapose them between, acts of violence that you've seen on the street, you can see a shooting, right? But you see a shooting, you see some guy go down, you see blood, the cops come, you're like, wow, that's crazy, right? Guy just got you. But when you're stabbing people and beating people with, blunt objects, it's just, hits different.
Yeah, I was actually at work a few years ago. We were setting up for the first night for New Year's Eve, and I was side by side with a coworker of mine in a 3,000-pound. It's supposed to be a base for a lighting tree.
Yeah,
it fell on him and crushed him right in front of me, man. And it was something like closing my eyes was a little. Every time I closed my eyes, I seen it. You know what I mean? Like, I seen it hit him in his face and then hit him in his chest and then pinned him down. But is that something like that you would like PTSD kind of thing? Do you start when you exposed to that level of violence?
So, I mean, another really interesting question, right? And I don't know if I'll ever know the effects of it truly, but I mean, there's definitely times in my life. I did 27 straight years in prison. I've actually had bouts of, like anxiety, like panic attacks, and I never even knew what they were like, you know what I'm saying? And then I went to a psychologist, and I was just like hyperventilating. I'm not sick, and I was just running, like, and sometimes I would get these bouts of like, I was like locked in a cell for so long that I looked out, I forgot where I was. I mean, so really, I mean, the effects are definitely physical effects that I could feel, obviously, engineered by psychological effects, right? You can actually feel them physically. So, yeah, definitely, it's real. It's definitely, that stuff is real. So
being in the feds, you got people from all over the country, right? You got guys from California to Boston. And I always say Boston is like the biggest small city or the smallest big city. But it seems like Boston is big as far as influence.
Yeah.
Right? Is there any time where, like, people clash?
In the penitentiary, it went by race.
Okay.
Right? When you went down to the medium security, it went more geography.
Okay, got you.
And I always, preface all this stuff that, people that don't know about it would think that, oh my God, that's like, people would think that it's, it's almost very controversial to talk about, but this is just a way of life for us in there, you know what I mean? I had one of my homeboys, a black dude from Dorchester named Herb, right? He was in Leavenworth with us. We love Herb. Herb loved us, you know what I'm saying? We're homies. We're going to get back to the neighborhood and, be cool. Right. But when shit went down, it just divided. It's a divisive environment by racial lines. So did people clash? So yeah, there was definitely clashes. I'm saying there's always problems over seating arrangements, over tables, over, who sits here, or, this guy did this,
What kind of things could you do in Leavenworth to like positive things? You got all that negativity surrounding you, prison, you got a bunch of testosterone. Did they have programming there, school? What kind of things were available, being that it's a maximum security? Yeah,
so not really so much programs at that time. They had them, you know what I'm saying? I remember taking a Western civilization course there, but not really too much. There wasn't really much there to do, except, kind of do things yourself. But the Boston guys, what we did is we majored in killing every other geographical area in hockey. So Saturday and Sunday, we had street hockey. We ended up... we were really good. I had a bunch of guys from Charlestown there with me. Those guys from Charlestown, I used to say they come out of their mother's womb with a hockey stick and a pistol. You know what I'm saying? So,
absolutely. How important is it to have stuff like sports and stuff like that? Because I feel like for me, like playing basketball, it was almost like an escape. I'm just so dialed into what's going on here. You know what I mean? Like I'm not thinking I'm in prison playing basketball. I'm just playing basketball. 100%.
And I think that's something that we all look forward to. Yeah. It was a release for us because whether you were playing hockey in prison or hockey in the street or basketball in the street, you were still playing, right? That was it. It doesn't matter where you were, right? For that moment in time, you were just on that court. And it's like, this is the same court, we'd be anywhere. You know what I mean? So I think for me, I think, it just helps you kind of feel a little, more comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
And like I always used to say, like, I would be laughing out loud, we'd be laughing, we'd be having a good time. And I always say, we laugh to keep from crying.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Sense.
So, and I think there's a lot of truth for that,
Sure.
that.
How long did you stay in Leavenworth for? And how do you eventually leave? Where do you go? How does it work? Classification?
Yeah, no, it's interesting, right? Because I've been into 12 different federal institutions. That's without like pretrial, without transfer, because counting transfer and pretrial, probably about 20 institutions,
Wow.
So it was a lot of moving around. And people always say, why do they move you? Is it diesel therapy? What the hell happened? But a lot of those transfers, some of them, of course, are disciplinary. You get into a disturbance. If there's a disturbance in the prison, there's something going on, whatever the case may be, is they may move you for those reasons.
Yeah.
But also there's good reasons, right? Your classification drops to like you went from a high security to a medium security. Great. Like everybody says, oh, the mediums are so different, So those transfers as well that, that happened. There was good reasons and bad reasons. And some reasons, for like nothing at all. So I had an investigation one time in Fort Dix. They investigated all the Boston guys there. There was no finding on the investigation, but they gave me a closer supervision transfer from a low to a medium, one security level higher, for nothing, for just not even no wrongdoing.
What were they alleging with this investigation?
It was for heroin, cell phones, steroids, and gambling.
Okay.
And we were gambling. We were guilty of all that. But anyway, that's a whole other story for another day.
You had mentioned you had read your first book, right? When you finished that, was that like something that you had a thirst for knowledge moving forward? Like, explain that. When did you go from like the person that's flooding out to now you want to read and learn Spanish and all of that stuff? You know what I mean? So, and it's true. I had that unquenchable thirst for knowledge in prison. So what I did from that first book was like I completed it, you know what I mean? And I was on a morning radio show the other day, and I said, I got my first A, I think, in trigonometry on pre-calculus, one of those courses. Yeah. And I cried. I was like, oh my God, I can do this. Yeah. Like, remember, the whole impetus for me, for, creating this criminal persona for myself, right? Wow. And living that life, of course, you know what I'm saying? Is that I didn't think I could learn, right? Yeah. So I think it was very powerful for me when I read that first book, when I started to know that I could learn, right? Yeah. That I had the capacity to learn. And I think that's very important, because what happens for me anyway in learning was when I started to learn and I started to know I could learn, I got self-worth. I had a lot of self-worth. And I was like, wow, I could do this. Yeah. And I started to really get into, curriculums, and I started to really study. And from that, it allowed me to dream big, right? Mm-hmm. So we're on the Bounce Back podcast, Absolutely. Right? So that for me allowed me to come up with the ideas that I did have and to put those ideas into motion and make them become a reality. What do you think changed? Do you think you just matured? Was it just an age thing? Do you think that, being where you were and still having so much time moving forward, was that part of it? Do you have like a self-discussion, an aha moment, or does it gradually kind of change into, just the man you are now, kind of,
Right. So I think for me personally, and I don't know if I could say this is kind of a universal truism for men especially, is that as I get older, right, I'm a lot more mellow. Mm-hmm. I have a lot more tolerance for things that I had no tolerance for before. So I think a lot of that is I started to age, I started to get older, right? And I know that in the federal system, once you turn 35, your points drop considerably. So that must be an age that psychologists have said after 35, people are ready to do more positive things than negatives. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure in the bell curve, right, there's, extremes at both ends. Maybe people have started a lot earlier. Maybe people never learn. You get it? Absolutely. So, but for me, that was definitely part of the process for me was aging, and getting older. But I also believe another part of the process for me is that, you talked about the thirst for knowledge. I say the unquenchable thirst for knowledge. I said, wow, I could do this. I can learn. If I could do math, bro, I could fly a plane. Yeah. If you know what I mean? So, Absolutely. And I probably can't. I'm just saying that as a crazy example. But, with the Spanish, that was the crowning achievement in my life, right? Yeah. So I heard a Greek kid, this kid, Chris, and, we're having a conversation just like us right now. And he turned to a dude. Somebody said something in Spanish, and he turned to a dude and started speaking in Spanish to him. And it was probably one of the most powerful moments that I can remember ever transpiring in front of me. And I was like, yo, that was sick right there. I want that. I want to do that.
Yeah.
You know? And then I had the conversation with myself, and they always start out like this. John, you've started a lot of things, but you've completed few.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but at that point in my life, I had been putting together a great self-resume, because that's really all it was for, was for myself, right? And because, like, I wanted to be a tough guy, and I proved it to everybody else but myself, and I left that void, you know? But I wanted to prove this to myself, that I could do something, and I had a great track record of doing that, you know? And so I said, I'm going to give myself 1 year. I'm going to ask my father to send me some books. And I did. And that started, you know, probably one of the most incredible journeys I had ever been on in my life.
Wow.
To, you know, I can speak Spanish well.
Was your mother alive when you got that A in trigonometry? Was you able to share that with her?
Yeah.
And was she proud? Like,
what
was that conversation
she was
like?
really happy, you know, and she was like, that's so good. You know, and it's funny too, because I was living with a guy at the time, like my bunkie, you know, and I told him, hey, I'm taking these college courses, man. I'm going to try to get a degree. And he was like, probably the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. And you know, but those things, like when me and you are talking, and I say to you, hey, yo, bro, check this out. I think this is the most stupidest thing in the whole world. You're doing it. That you question it.
Yeah.
Because these are people that, like, you know, you hang around with, you trust. You're like, wait a minute, hold on. You know what I mean? But of course, I didn't listen. I knew that was crazy. But I thought for a second, like, wait a minute, hold on. Is this stupid? You know, because I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
You know, what the next person thinks, you put a little thought into that and go through this process and say, hold on, wait a minute. You know what I mean? But I went through that process and said, this person's out of his mind. Like,
Yeah.
no, that's...
What's your favorite thing about learning or school in general? And did you end up getting a degree out of all that?
Yeah, so no, I didn't get a degree, but I went to all these, I took a bunch of college courses, which really, what happened is that they kind of ended this one. We were getting grants in Fairton, and they ended those grants. We didn't have college anymore.
Yeah.
And with the program for the incarcerated, they got transferred. It was harder to get the stuff. All on me. I probably could have if I wanted to, if I was diligent enough. But at that point, I had begun learning Spanish, and that was my newfound passion, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and my favorite thing about it is just self-worth, like, you know, just like, you know, there was nothing in the whole world to this day beats sitting in front of a TV and watching a program in Spanish and knowing what everybody's saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I always hear people when they like make fun of people with accents and stuff. I'm like, you realize this person is speaking probably like their second or third language. How many do you know? You know, there's a lot of people that are just ignorant out there or just don't think beyond the surface level. You
know what? I got to tell you this. It's almost like I gave you a script of what to say, because everything you're saying, right? The questions that you're asking, you know, these are just the way I think. Yeah. It's like I always say for myself, I try to speak with no accent. Like I speak more like a Puerto Rican or a Dominican, because those are the people that really, you know, taught me. You know what I'm saying? But when you hear people with an accent and you attach stupidity to an accent, that's what I always say to people. I go, I bet you he speaks better English than you speak Spanish.
Right. Yep.
Right off the rip, I can tell you that.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on the education part, because I think education is vital. I think we need more of it in the prison system. Is that something that you can agree with, and why or why not? So, yes, definitely. In my case, right, I'm probably, and I always tell people this, that I'm the worst case study for anybody. Yep. Because I got the greatest friends on planet Earth. You know what I'm saying? I never wanted for anything since I've been out of prison. I lived with a judge when I got out of prison. You know, my friends own half the restaurants in the North End. Like, I never went hungry. You know, people handed me money to get on my feet. So I always say that I'm the worst case study. But as it pertains to education, for guys like you and I, right, I think it's a great investment, right? But what we deal with when we deal with systems as a whole are, like, you know, the bell curve, again, the 70 percentile, you know, and I believe that the single most important thing to give anybody, because you give them self-worth, is education. But how receptive
to education are people in prison.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We have to look at the realities of how prison is.
Well, I feel like even in general, society in general, like you said, in the neighborhood, you wanted to be the tough guy. Why do you think like the tough guy is glamorized over the valedictorian?
Right, and it's a great question. Why do professional football players make more a gazillion dollars more than teachers?
Right.
Don't you think it should be the reverse? You're doing something you love, they're doing something they love, but they're grooming the next generation to be leaders, right? So I don't think that, it kind of, everything jibes.
Yeah.
And I think, like everything in life, you know what I mean? And I try to just preach this all the time, is to just to thine own self be true, right? Go out and get what you want. Do what you can do. Use everything at your disposal. Because, there's a quote that says, if somebody doesn't want to learn, nobody in the world can teach them. But if somebody wants to learn, there's nothing that can stop them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's something like that. It's not the exact quote. But, so I just think the thing is that if you're hungry enough, listen, my story is based on if you fight long enough, you're going to get to the other side. I fought 10,000 days, right? It's a long journey. You know what I mean? And I always tell people this. Imagine having 15 straight years in prison, right? And you come to that 15-year mark, and then you got to do 20 more.
Yeah.
It's a beast, bro.
Yeah.
It's a beast to rise above that situation and have a great diet, do something for your mind and your body every single day, work out diligently and harder than anybody. It's a hard life to live. I was hard on myself. And every day I got up to work out, it was freezing cold. I'd go out and work out with no shirt on, and you know what I would tell myself? That's it, bro. You got to suffer. This is part of your suffer. Suffer.
So how do you go from the 35 to the 27 years? How does that work?
Okay, and it's another great question, right? So what people don't get about my case first, and I always explain it, is there's something called a preponderance of the evidence, where it's a lot easier to overcome than the, beyond the reasonable doubt. So I was given an opportunity to plea out to 35 years. And that was with the murder and the attempted murder. I had like 27 years worth of drugs. And they said, listen, take a 35-year deal. None of your friends will get in trouble. You're not going to get a life sentence. And you go happily on your way. Sounds easy enough, but 35 years is 35 years, right?
Especially you're 26 at the time or whatever
anybody
it is.
in their right mind says, we're going to trial. What do we got to lose?
Yeah.
But I'm sitting here as a result of that. And thank God I did do that. You know what I mean? And I did it the way I did it. But getting back to your question, I got sentenced to 420 months. 5 years comes right off with statutory good time. Statutory good time is just for signing the plea deal. All you have to do is 85% of your time. So that boils down to 30 years.
Okay.
Now, Trump passed the First Step Act, right? That gave guys like me, which I never thought I would be eligible for because I was a leader organizer in my drug case. And reading the statute, unfortunately, I got good at reading law, but I never liked to read what they had to say about me with these programs. So I ended up getting my 1 year off of that. I ended up getting a year off my sentence for completing the drug program, which I was eligible for, which I never thought I would be.
Wow.
But the thing that saved me is the violence wasn't indicted violence. It was an upward departure or an enhancement. Okay. Because if I had got found guilty of a murder, nothing. I would have got nothing.
Yeah.
Just maybe the statutory good time. So the year off of the drug program, year off of the First Step Act, and a year halfway house.
Okay.
So that took the 35 down to 30, and the 3 off was the 27. So I was still doing time while I was in the halfway house, of course. So I did 27 straight years in prison, but my sentence was really 28 years because I did another year in the halfway house and home confinement.
At what point do you start developing like a plan for your release? What was that plan, and how much has it changed? These things evolve.
Yeah, good questions, right? So, of course, I knew that, people were coming to get me. I knew, who was coming to get me. My friends were coming to get me. And my friend was a lawyer for the longest time. He wasn't my friend because he was a lawyer. He was my friend because I played basketball, would have been Nautilus Plus since I was 17. He'd just become a lawyer. I became a criminal. And, I knew those things were going to come together. You know, somebody
Yeah.
was coming to get me. I had somebody to bring me stuff. I had somebody, you know, to take me to the halfway house. I had a place to go after the halfway house until I got on my feet. You know, I always played around with this thing when I found out what time I was going to be doing it. It was 2-7, if you see that, right? 2-7 STR8,
Yep.
27 straight years. I thought it was a cool play
Yeah.
with letters and numbers,
Yep.
you know? So I always knew it was going to be something because, listen, I had educated myself. I had the capacity to learn, which gave me the capacity to dream big, right? So I dreamt big. I never knew what it was going to be,
Yeah.
you know? And I had, at certain points in my incarceration, guys had made like sweatshirts for me and they had sold, whatever,
Yeah.
you know? They paid for them, and whatever money I got, I just put in my kick, you know what I'm saying? Just guys taking care of me, supporting me. So my brother Charlie was having this fundraiser for me, I don't know, 3-4 years before I got out of prison. It was bad weather the whole year, nothing materialized, and he still had a bunch of shirts up in his office, which is my office today,
Yeah.
right? So he said, why don't you go up there and sign them shirts and sell them, you know what I'm saying? And I always tell the story about, I almost spit my coffee out saying, who the hell's going to buy shirts with my signature? Get the hell out of here, you know? He goes, just go up there and try to do it, you know? So I did it, and, you know, I sold them, bro.
Yeah,
and I was like, you know, just like so grateful, like, and so humbled by people that would, you know, and I found out, you know, about Instagram, the power of Instagram, right?
Yeah.
I got an account for like less than a year. I got 11,000
Yeah.
followers, right? You know what I'm saying?
That's
You
amazing.
helped me get some followers. And, you know,
Absolutely.
followers for me that's my business, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to support a guy that, you know, took a 35-year bid on the chin, whatever, that, you know, that kind of changed his life around. That's how you support me. There's a link there. Click it,
Yeah.
right? You know what I'm saying? So, and that was the way I started to derive capital. When I first got out, I was carrying 50-pound bags of cement, you know, just having a job to be out of the halfway house. And, you know, I thank my friend John Bonaparte for giving me the job. He was a great guy for doing that for me, right?
Yeah.
And blessed just to have the best people on planet Earth
Yeah.
in my corner, man.
I
You
mean,
know what I'm saying?
how important is that for people to when they just get out to get a job, do you think? Or to do something that, like, anything that's going to take up 8 to 10 hours of your day, I feel like it keep you out of trouble for those things should be a good thing.
I just feel like anybody that's been incarcerated has came to the conclusion while they were on the prison yard that any fucking thing is better than this.
Yeah.
Right?
Facts.
So, you know, and I'll tell you, it got old quick work. You know what I'm saying? It got old. But I mean, I always had to tell myself, you know, and I have this saying that I always say, where would you be right now? Because I always think when I think that, like, what the hell? What am I doing here? Where would I be in prison?
Right.
I'd just be getting in. And I had this guy, right? He's my friend. He's the flesh mechanic. He's a porn star. I met him in L.A., right? Yo, crazy. But he's just a fucking sweetheart of a guy, great guy. We ended up getting close at my friend's, you know, he's a content creator.
Yeah.
And his house out there, he's got a mansion out there. And, you know, the craziest thing is when you have an impact on somebody's life. He showed me a tattoo. It said, where would you be right now?
Wow.
He got that tattooed on his leg, right?
That's pretty
You know,
cool.
what a great dude, right?
Absolutely.
And then, you know, to have an impact on somebody's life. But that's what I did, right? So how valuable is it to have a job? It's the most valuable thing in the whole world. You can stop making, you know, you can't sell drugs anymore, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a dead game.
Yeah.
They're still arresting and fucking putting people in prison with the same kilo from fucking 1990.
Right.
You know what I mean? So come on. I'm saying it's just, you know, for once in my, I don't even know a drug dealer.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing in the whole world. I
Wouldn't
don't
even
know
know
anybody
it.
that would even venture into that.
Yeah.
And there's so many ways to make money legally now.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So you just, but you know, I think when you talk about that, I have to preface that, you know, I went from living an anti-social life to living a pro-social life
like
and
that.
trying to build relationships with people. I mean, that's the thing. The kid that went to Harvard, he's in here saying, I'm telling him, hey, listen, this is this, and this, whatever you, he's like, I'm like, yeah, but this is what life's about, just building relationships
Absolutely.
with people. You know, the kid's a 19-year-old kid probably,
Yeah.
you know, majoring in film. Come on,
Yeah,
what do you need?
absolutely.
You need something? Let's do it. Let's bang it out.
So during all that time, I guess talk about some of the things that you learned about yourself, right? You went to school, you learned all these things. What did you learn about yourself?
You know that the biggest thing I learned is that I had the capacity to learn.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that was the biggest thing. And I always tell everybody, you know, the biggest dichotomy in my life is I came to prison the smartest guy on planet Earth. But when I started to really learn, I realized kind of how stupid I was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we have this this image of ourselves. I had this image of myself that I was this tough guy. I was, I was smarter than everybody else. When people talk to me, my first thing was no. Imagine starting off every, conversation with no.
Yeah.
Like, come on, where are you getting in life with that? Now, I try to be receptive. Listen, old habits die hard. I still think I'm smart sometimes,
Yeah, absolutely.
But, you have to be receptive to what people are saying. You can learn, my brother Ronnie told me that you can learn something from a dummy. You know what I mean?
I think sometimes, a lot of times, intelligence could be more intimidating to people than like the threat of violence or something like that. Even the most violent or crazy guys, they feel a certain way when they're exposed to somebody who's just superior intelligence. They start insecurities coming out too.
Right.
And I like how you said that, like, it's not about like the course, right? You take sociology. That's cool, the stuff you're learning in sociology, but it's you're learning how to learn, I think, is the important part of it. That way, when you do find something that you might love or have a passion for, you already have the skills, to learn how to learn. And I think that's very important. You feel the same way, like learning how to learn?
I think that, you hit the nail on the head, I'm saying, but, I think the age comes into the picture as well. And, you start to build up this, this resume within yourself, this, constitution in yourself saying, hey, you know what? I did this before. Yeah. I can do this again. I can finish this course. I can do this. I've been through tougher things. I'm going to just have to sit down, not get frustrated, figure it out, And I think that helped me a lot with technology when I got out too. Mm-hmm. It's frustrating. I just did work through the frustration.
Yeah, sometimes you get headaches trying to concentrate so much on certain stuff.
So I think that there's a lot to be said for that, for sure.
Absolutely. So with music, movies, you see a lot of glamorizing of certain lifestyles and stuff like that. So jail, prison, the criminal lifestyle, right? A lot of glamorizing it. I like to ask, like, what do you, in your experience, is the worst part about prison?
The worst part is no solitude. Everybody used to say, what's the thing you miss the most about being in jail? They used to think it would be food, women, you know what I'm saying? Of course, I miss that as well, you know what I'm saying? But solitude. If I want to just, like, the greatest gift in my whole life now is with the exceptions that I'm 2 terrorists I got living with me that are my cats. I mean, I get to go there and just be alone.
Yeah. So say someone came in and they just got same sentence as you at the same age, and they asked you advice for how to get through 27 straight years. What are some things that you would tell that person?
You're going to need a fucking miracle. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how I did it now when I look back on it, but I would just say that the things that I always say is that you have to do something for your mind and something for your body every single day. You have to rise above your situation, right? No matter what your situation is, I don't care what it is. If it's hardship, you got a death in your family, there's an issue that you say, like, listen, I can't get through this. This is the hardest thing in my life. Rise above that situation, right? Do whatever you can to strengthen yourself. Right? Keep yourself strong. The situation is going to change. Don't let yourself change. You know what I'm saying? Don't get weak. Don't get susceptible to injury, to disease. Keep yourself strong. Work on your mind and work on your body every single day. Your situation is going to change. I waited 10,000 days and mine changed. Yeah. And I had my day in the sun, and I haven't had a bad day since.
So talk about, like, upon your release, how does it work? The feds, they don't do like a parole or anything, right? Or
yeah, there's definitely. I'm on 5 years supervised release right now, so it's 5 years parole. I got to get permission to travel. I got to get permission for anything to leave the state. But I do. I have, and listen, I'm not a guy, right, that, beats the system down and says, these people are the worst. Yeah. Listen, I've had a lot of positive experiences with administrators in my life. My probation officer, my parole officer right now, she's been great with me. But I just think that's a testament to me. Yeah. I don't drink. I don't get high. I don't drop dirty urines. I don't do stupid stuff for the most part. You know what I'm saying? There's some stupid stuff. Yeah. Mike tells me all the time, he goes, listen, stop thinking. Yeah. Let me think for you. But I mean, really, honest to God, I'm saying, I had great rapport with administrators. I got a great rapport with my probation officer. Obviously, these people know me from me, right? They know me from my track record, right? So I just think that I've had a very good track record, and I haven't really had problems.
What's been like one of the biggest adjustments for you since you've come home?
one of the biggest adjustments since I got home. I mean, the prices are exorbitant. You know what I'm saying? I think prices are very high, but I mean, everything changes, right? The only thing that's constant is change. The toughest thing for me, that like when I went to my first Bruins game, there was you couldn't use cash.
Oh yeah, Red Sox was the same way.
You know, so I mean, the thing is with the technology, but here's the way I do things, right? Is that there's always a silver lining for me. So I always look for the silver lining. My famous last words is, the blessing always initially comes disguised as the curse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you can find that silver lining, if you can get the worst curse of your life, rise above that situation and wait, you're gonna see the blessing to it. You're gonna see it. It's gonna come. And sometimes the worst things that happen to you turn out to be like, I can't believe it. I thought this is amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just think for me, the hardest adjustment for me was, everybody knows me, but I don't know them. And it's uncomfortable sometimes. You know what I mean? People come up to me, especially when I'm with Mike, you know what I'm saying? When I'm with the Beanshooter, people are coming up to us all the time, mostly him, Mike, Beanshooter. But like people come up to me, hey, can I get a picture with you?
Yeah.
Or like a dude come up to me in the gym today, man. He goes, I don't care about celebrities. I don't care about sports stars. He goes, you're my guy. He goes, I follow you.
Yeah.
He goes, my friend Gio's like this. But it's humbling
cool,
too,
yeah.
you know what I mean? But I just think that's been a hard adjustment, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everybody before, well, like I kind of knew who they were, and now I don't, you know what I'm saying? So there's people that know me that I don't know, which is amazing. It's humbling. It's a hard adjustment. And, but I always say, listen, I'm the worst case study, bro. I've had a seamless integration. I wasn't shell-shocked when I got out of jail. I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know?
What advice would you give to somebody just getting out?
Just give yourself a chance. Just take a deep breath. Nothing is going to get done overnight. Take a deep breath, relax. Don't, conflict avoidance. Don't go into your old behaviors. When the lady at the front desk of the halfway house just breathalyzes you, you go upstairs and they say, hey, we didn't get a breathalyzer from you. Don't go crazy and say, I'm not taking it. You know what? If you're clean, say, you know what? Okay, it's an inconvenience. People are stupid sometimes, you might think. Whatever the case may be is, just listen. You're going to get a lot more respect. Use humility as a currency.
I like that. Talk about some of the highlights since you've been out. You've been up to a lot these past 18 months. What are some of your proudest moments upon your release, man? You've been all over the place, Ian Bick.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that like?
It's just so... I got a lot of great friends, and I'm just so blessed that I have them. And Mike can attest to it too. They had a party for me in like a very exclusive place with people that own, a lot of places in the North End. They had a party for me. Just the welcome that I have got. What is the highlight? I mean, me and Mike's relationship, we've built this, since I got out of prison. That's a highlight for me. I was on his podcast. He reached out to a friend, and I was like, who is this guy? You know what I'm saying? And then, I really kind of found out, like, wow, this guy's like got a lot of people. This guy's got a big following, and he's just a good guy. Genuinely, we hang out, we have a good time. It's easy. I mean, highlights. A judge took me into his home, and I fostered a relationship with his family the kids that I didn't even know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Just like, listen, bro, 18 months highlight reel.
Yeah.
Going to Miami, going to, Los Angeles, going to New York, walking in Fashion Week. I mean, my 18 months it's an Instagram reel.
Yeah.
It's insane.
So talk about the Fashion Week thing. Were you up there modeling on the runway?
I mean, imagine.
Like, how do you?
I don't
go from the pen and then you're sitting there? You go from walking the yacht to now you're walking the runway. This is incredible.
It's just
thing.
It's a whirlwind. It's a testament to your day is gonna come. You know what I mean? And what I can attribute that to is connections. Is my friends. That's a friend of my friends. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the power of Nick Verano.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's the greatest hospitality person on planet Earth. You know what I mean? He knows everybody, and he wants me to know everybody, and I'm grateful to have a friend like that. I have, my friends that I got indicted with, my friends from my neighborhood. Listen, I'm a type of guy that builds relationships, right? Even when I was living an antisocial life, that stand the test of time, bro. If you're my friend till the end. And that's the way I always say it.
Yeah,
and I've had a lot of great friends in my life.
I mean, you must feel at least some sort of self-validation when like a judge is taking you in, like, okay, maybe I am a good person. Maybe I'm not this, this evil person, this bad person that they might paint you out to be on the news or on your paperwork. And like, what do you attribute that to? Do you think, is it the coming up with the good parents? Is it life experience, a little bit of everything?
Sorry to cut you off, but no, another good question. And I always like to think it's a testament to who I am, right? Because loyalty, I think, speaks volumes for a person, right? I think your reputation always precedes you. I don't have to tell you about my reputation. We're on a podcast, and I'm telling you a little bit about myself. But I mean, I'm going to have the next guy really tell you about me. You know what I'm saying? I think there's a power in that, And I just think that, especially Leo Farmer, that was the judge that took me in. I told Leo, I said, if the roles were reversed, Leo, and you were getting out of jail and I was going up for a judgeship, I'd have maybe gave you a little package of money and said, I love you, brother. Yeah. You need anything else, talk to me, but you can't stay here. Yeah. But Leo is the type of guy, and which is why he is that type of pillar in the community, that he's your friend till the end. He said, listen, you're my friend. Imagine what his family, I mean, he got, 4 kids, his wife, 2 dogs. I'm saying, come into Linfield. My probation officer went to Leo and he was like, he's not going to have a problem living here, I don't think. You know what I mean? So, yeah, just blessed, bro. Blessed. But you know what? Sometimes you have to wait for the blessing. Sometimes the curse turns into the blessing.
Absolutely.
If you can stand the test of time, you're going to win.
So why don't you talk about some of the things that you're working on now and like maybe some of your goals moving forward? Yeah,
so, I always talk about how important it is to me to have the most amazing friends on the planet. And so what I think that I have to do as a part of that is to give back to the community, right? And try to give back as much as I can, right? So, and usually when you give, like when I have given, it's all come back 20-fold. I went and spoke at Matty Powell's place, Power Recovery. He gave me a scholarship to be a recovery coach. So that's something I'm working on, something that I really like doing. Yeah. I'm accumulating hours to get accredited and to become a full-time recovery coach. I'm doing that part-time now. I got my clothing line, 27 straight. People buy stuff with my signature on it. Another humbling thing, but there's a demand for the product.
Absolutely. Where can people find the product?
So you can link in on my Instagram. It's official_Johnny_Bartolomeo. And, you can put that up when you
I'll put screenshots up and everything.
And, they can get there, and then there's a link there to go to everywhere else. My YouTube page, the
YouTube channel. And why did you start that, and what kind of content are you putting on there for the people?
So my YouTube channel was, I would do that when I would public speak. When I went to Rockland Recovery and spoke for Eddie McGrath, I just taped it and I put it on there, and it was like the lone video. Now, like, I'm putting up shorts every day. If I do have a podcast or a speaking engagement, stuff that me and Mike do. Mike's on my YouTube page. We did podcasts together. That's another thing we're working on, me and Mike. I'm working on, a bunch of different stuff that, I've signed contracts for a few things that I'm looking forward to, trying to do some consulting, so the sky's the limit, right? Yeah. So I didn't write down, this is my plan, but I just feel so confident the way that things are going, and they have gone for me, that good things are going to continue to happen for me.
Why is it important for you to do this whole giving back thing, right? You could have just did your time, came home, put your head down, went on with your life. Why did you want to be like in the public eye and then help with the community?
Well, I think it's important too, right? Because, my mindset has changed so much that I just think that no matter who I'm around, I could give a little dose of positivity to. I can make you feel like you're reborn if you hang out with me. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I just think there's a power in that, right? To rejuvenate somebody. I've been around people that have made me feel alive, and I like that. And I also, the best thing is, my friend that I hit a square for the Super Bowl, right? And it was for like $1,250. And my friend that did it was the guy that owns that content creation company. And he was like, hey, you're a couple minutes away from winning that next quarter too. It's going to be great. And then I didn't win it. And he went, man, he goes, that was a bad beat. You should have won it. And I just texted him back and I said, you know what? That guy that won it is going to feel the exact same thing I felt when I won it, and it was great. And I'm happy that he's going to get to feel that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm happy when people get to feel, happy about, good things are happening. You know what I mean? So I like that. I know how it feels for me to receive. So I think, it's only right to give back and allow others to feel that feeling, because it's a phenomenal feeling.
What do you think is the main message that you would like for people to get out of hearing your story?
That, people do change, right? However, people do change by maintaining core values. You can still be the same person. Like, you don't have to, cooperate on a criminal investigation to say you changed, though. You know what I mean? So, you can still be a solid guy. You can still have morals and values that are attractive to people. These are things that attract people to you. You know what I mean? So I just think that there's a power in remaining true to who you are, but changing the person that you have been.
I like that. Why was it important for you to come up here and tell your story, or for anybody who comes up and tells these stories? Why do you think that's important for people to hear? First
and foremost, right, there's a lot of venues open for me. I'm not saying that bragging, but there's a lot of venues open for me, And I think, me and Beanshooter had talked about you and said how much that we really like you, and that, anything we could ever do for you because you've done stuff for us. When he got shadow banned, you were like, hey, what can I do for you? Can I put you on the page? What? No, you were like, hey, what can I do for you? Send me something. I'll put it up. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I just think it's people helping people, right? I think that's important. I think it's important to be genuine with people. I think it's important to not be self-centered. I think it's important for people to work together, And this is a call right now to everybody from Boston, right? Yeah. For all of us, people that have been on, the Bounce Back podcast, people that are my friends I haven't met yet. To come together, to collaborate. My connections are your connections. Yeah. Let's all work together. And I think, there's power in that. And, I don't have to be the most important person in the room. You know what I mean? I just want to be, one of the players. Yeah. That's all.
And so with Boston being, like we had said earlier, like a small, big city or big, small city, but it has a lot of influence, I feel like. Why do you think that what is it about Boston or Massachusetts and the people here that seems to be so influential throughout the country almost?
Okay, I'm going to answer this question. Mike, why don't you come over here? Come over here and sit down. I'm going to give you the mic in a second. I know you got an answer for this. And I know you got great answers for this. Because Mike's a Boston guy through and through. Yep. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Differentiate that.
That's listen.
5 miles away.
Come a little closer, Mike. There you go. So get us on the TV screen. But I just think that, this is the place to be right now. Yeah. Boston is like the place to live. You know what I'm saying?
I just saw it got voted top 3 party cities or something like that.
Everybody, because we know it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? We've been involved in it. We know what it is. You know what I mean? And we love it because, we're biased. We love Boston, right? The Red Sox, we're official Yankee haters before we're Red Sox fans. You know what I mean? So I just think, number one is I'm going to, pump my friends up down the North End, Frankie DiPasquale and Nicky Verano. They made that North End the greatest little Italy in the United States. It stayed the same. All mom and pop shops, no corporations. That's just one reason. Let's talk about the Celtics. I'm saying they made us great. I got out of, let's talk about Tom Brady. He made me a movie star in prison too. But anyway, Jermaine Wiggins is my dear friend, my childhood friend. Put me on the map. You know what I mean?
That's
Started
cool.
talking about me. The best. We love him. But just.
Talena?
Who?
Wife, right?
Oh, Talena. I'm saying another. She's a transplant. Huh?
You grew up with Jermaine Wiggins?
I grew up with him, played sports with him, yeah. He was a few years younger than me. He's my friend, Danny Acacella's best friend. Jermaine used to call Danny from Georgia, and Danny used to be, why do you want to come back? You live in Georgia. Go to a party out there. You're a fucking football player for Georgia. You know what I mean? But Jermaine's a Boston kid through and through. That's why, you know, these are the people that I love. I love the people that love Boston the most, you know?
Yeah, and it's pretty cool to see.
What's your answer to that?
Yeah, what makes Boston stand out amongst, you know, nationally compared to mass?
The sports thing, number one. I mean, it's just known for a lot, you know. I mean, bank robbers. It's known as the bank robbery capital. Well, it used to be.
Right, the town.
I think a lot of firsts are here too, which I think is why we have that influence. We got, I think, the first public train station, first public beach, Revere Beach. You know what I mean? Yeah,
really?
Absolutely. A lot of firsts.
First housing project.
South Boston?
Charlestown.
Oh, Charlestown.
Okay. Yeah,
I think,
a lot of firsts.
Our accents.
Plus
A lot of immigrants, you know. For us, you know, the Irish, the Italian, and you know, I think it gets a bad rep a lot with the it's racist. But I think it was like when I first went to Walpole, I remember I walked in and they said, you know, there's a line for the whites and a line for the blacks. I'm like, what's this? The Deep South? You know what I mean? And people like gave Boston a bad rap, but I think it was just the way it was segregated. Like, you know, this neighborhood was Irish. Just like even East Cambridge here was a lot of Portuguese. Like different neighborhoods, you know, were just East Boston, Revere, Italians, South Boston, Charlestown, Irish, and I think it got a bad rap that it was just like, you know, this racist thing, but it was just more segregated, you know? It's just a lot of history.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got great schools, great hospitals too. You know, people coming from all over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it's a very attractive place, but it's just
great food.
Very expensive.
I mean, we got great food.
Those guys.
But I'm saying, I just think that
Monica's too.
Monica's your boy, right? So, but I'm saying the thing is, for us is, I just think like, you know, for me, it's just been a whirlwind, right?
Yeah.
I come out of prison and we win a championship. I come out of prison and I come to a city that, like, is like you say, the top third. Like everybody wants to come to Boston. Everybody wants to live here. They're building everywhere. People are coming, and rightly so. I love it.
What about children? Do you got any kids?
No kids.
Okay, is that something you ever think about?
I got
regret or whatever?
Mike's my kid. No, but I mean, I took care of all those kids in prison. Those were my kids. I got 2 cats. You know what I mean? I think that ship has sailed. I like my solitude.
What are some things you're looking forward to with your freedom moving forward, man?
Going to Colombia with Mike in March.
Is that your first time leaving the country, or?
It will be. I don't know, but I still got to get approved by my.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'll start my OnlyFans page going to Colombia.
It looks like a good time. I'll tell you that.
One of the greatest things that you know, I always joke with Johnny. I tell him I'm jealous. Is he used his time in prison for a lot, and one of them was to speak Spanish, and he speaks fluent. He speaks to people I know, and they think he's Dominican because, you know, he learned from a lot of Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, and like when he talks to Colombians and Venezuelans, they think he's actually Dominican, and he tells them he's a straight gringo all the way.
Yeah.
Surprised.
Surprised.
He rolls the tongue and everything, right, Johnny?
Yeah.
You roll the R's?
Yeah.
Arriba.
Claro.
Claro.
Yeah, see, you got it.
Aprendo un poquito. I try to learn a little bit.
Sigue aprendiendo.
So, I mean, we touched on a lot of things, man. If there was anything that you wanted to touch on, maybe we didn't get a chance to, or even just maybe some closing words for the audience out there.
I'd like to say something real quick.
Absolutely. You want to actually pass him the mic, though, just in case? Make sure we get the good art. It sounds like you got something very important to say here.
Yeah.
We're improvising. This is what we do. These are the best ones.
Absolutely.
I always tell Johnny, his story is so impressive. That's why when I got here, he's like, sit down. I said, you know what, you just do. I don't want to be a third wheel. You got a great story. You do, you know, maybe in the end I jump in.
Absolutely.
But there's so many things about it, and he speaks about it, you know, being 5 years in prison and thinking I have 30 to go.
Yeah.
You know, and then he says being in 10, what the fuck, I got 25 to go.
Mm-hmm.
Being in 15, I got 20 to go. Just most people, it breaks them. They get on drugs in jail. They get on psych meds. They think they're gonna sleep the bit away, and next thing you know, they're swallowing bed springs.
Yeah.
And we've all seen the guys that go the psych med route and the jail and the drugs, and then the violence. You start owing money, and people fall apart. It's a testament to his mental, you know, state. He's mentally as strong as anybody I ever met.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest things about him is he got out and he didn't party.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody
Respect
I know
that.
gets out, especially after a time like that. They're going to want to drink, they're going to smoke weed, they're going to want to do something. And he stayed sober, and, you know, he battled with drugs a little bit before, and in there maybe a little. But to get out, you know, most people think, you know, society owes him something, right? You know, and they first thing they want to do is get fucked up.
Yeah.
And I think it's a testament to who he is as a person.
Absolutely.
And you know, my last bit I did 3.5, almost 4 years. I got out and I was like, I went in the mall and my heart was pounding out of my chest and I had anxiety, and this guy just rolled out the door and he's on yachts cannonballing off a yacht in Miami with OnlyFans people. So he's just a different animal, you know. And it's an honor to have him, you know, call me a friend, and I consider him a great friend. And I think the sky's the limit for him. You know,
absolutely, man. I mean, how important is it? I mean, you seem like such a positive guy, man. Why is that important?
I just think negativity wastes time. I'm saying, if you I always just try to be upbeat. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to, listen, you know how I got through those 27 years? All I said to myself was, just do it like you did yesterday. No matter what. I come here today, right? Be a little nervous. I'm going to do it like the last one. Just all you have to do is, we're all trying to get through life, right?
Yeah.
We're all trying to get through life. We think we're experts at it. We don't know anything.
Nothing.
Nobody knows what's around the next corner, right? So we just play like we know what we're doing. So just, why be bitter?
Yeah.
I want to enjoy my life. Because here's what happens. People get bad news. People get sick, right? And their heart starts pounding like, oh my God. Oh my God. I'm thinking about yesterday. I didn't have any problems. What problems did I think I had?
Yeah.
You didn't have any problems. But now it's too late to go and enjoy that time. Now you're sick. Now you got to worry about going to the doctor, doing this. Why am I waking up sweating?
Yeah.
Enjoy your life.
Absolutely.
There's going to be bad news. When it comes, act accordingly. Still be positive.
Yeah. Don't be bitter, be better. That's what
right.
I always
I love it.
you know what I mean?
I
That's
love
what I always say, man. So yeah, I guess tell the people one more time where they can find your social media, like your YouTube, the Instagram. What else do you got going? You got TikTok and stuff too?
I got a TikTok too. It's John Bartolomeo. I got a Snapchat, John Bartolomeo. You can, you're going to put all the links up when we're done. And listen, it's a pleasure because me and Mike, you know, really are fond of you. I like what you're doing.
Likewise.
It was I appreciate you having me on, and it was a pleasure to, you know, do a show with you today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming, guys. Mikey,
a lot,
Johnny,
The
guys.
Bridge.
I'm B. Luke, guys. It is what it is. Remember what's next. That's what you make it. On that note, we're out of here. Peace.
Boom.
Ain't got a moment when they see you down, just know they love it.